Learning to render is hard. And one of the lessons that seemed to work best when I was teaching iPad for architects and designers at UCLA was what I call draw along exercises. And often we would have a draw along exercise and then later have an individual critique of one of the students' work. And in this case, one of my more talented students, Nick, asked me to tell him what I might do to improve a particular rendering he did. So if you're into this kind of thing before and after, here was Nick's sketch before, and here's what we came up with after. And this is the process that we went through. So I hope you enjoy it. All right, so there's that. I'm going to add a layer on top of that. I'll go with a fat pen so we can see my marks, okay? So I'm looking at this, and you're right. I see this wall as being a little flat, like you said, and there's some strategies for that. I feel like it's kind of sharp, the angle there. So I'm even thinking that before we're done here, I'm going to keep the wall intact, just like you got, but I want the wall to, I want to make this wall a little more inviting. I want the perspective to invite me in a little bit more. So that's one. There's a very obvious thing here where just the Venetian blinds aren't parallel, right? And also I think this might be a chance to just have a better looking blind, than she has right now, right? That's just a interior. This I feel like it went a little too far, but no, I guess that's about right. Um, so yeah, we'll leave that there for now. This is interesting. Like, you know how you sit on this chair right now here? I'm going to make it so the chair is facing in. So I'm just going to do a real quick little trick like that, where I'm just going to fill this stuff in, all with the same color. So now in my, now in the rendering, I've directed her attention this way so that she can feel what it's like to be in that office. And then I think I might move this over just here to fill this a little bit more, right? Because there's some, make a little more space between this computer and her chair. I think I might pull this floor out further. So it's a little abrupt. And I could even see this carpet maybe coming right out off the page or coming right out like this. Because it's a cool looking thing. So I think I'm going to end up stretching that down here. I would just, like, this to me seems to be sort of angling back again, in the wrong direction. So I'm going to take this over and I'm going to make just this side of this thing read a little bit more in perspective. So I'm going to end up filling up all this, or filling out all that, okay? And then I think I'm going to bring the dog in just a little bit so it's not quite jammed in the corner. And then as we get more refined, I'm going to give these some depth. And they work well as the front of the diploma, but I think I'm going to add a little fake frame to them, because it is her pride and joy, right? And should be. And then we're going to do a little bit of a drop shadow under them. And then we're going to do a drop shadow under this chair. And then we'll sort of darken the wall. We'll pretend that light's coming in the room, and the edge of the desk here is sort of casting a shadow down here somewhere. It'll be kind of vague, but we'll begin to put a soft shadow down here. Okay, so several of these things that we just did they're all trying to address that depth issue of yours that you yourself were picking up on. Okay, so I'll go back to the original layer, and I'm going to select it in freehand mode. And I know I'm going to get in trouble, I realize, coming across that desk, but that's all right. We're just going to fake it here. So here I'm going to do a copy and paste. I mean, this doesn't even matter because you've got the original. So you can see if I isolate that layer, there it is, right? And maybe while it's isolated, just to show you, remind you how easy it is, I'll tap the soft brush, and then I'll pick up this color here, and I'll just quickly turn this into a single, wall. I'll come pick up this blue a little bit. I'll blend things in, and it'll just be more fun to use now. And then I'll come over and I'll clean that up. That where I went over, I'll just clean it up with a quick erase. So if I turn everything back on, now I'll give myself some room to work here. And now I can stretch this thing out like we were talking about. I'm trying to remember. I always tell you guys the different ones that I use. I should have used distort, I guess. And I'll just wrestle this into place. Oops. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know at this point, but I just want to show you the advantages if possible. Okay, so that wall eventually is going to be a little more welcoming, you might say, right? And I'll do that. Let's stop it about there. Okay, and then I remember I had that. I'm going to go back to this layer, and I will select the shape of the desk because that works pretty good for me. And I'll just randomly close this up, and then I'll go back to this layer, and all I'm about to do is subtract that area from the new wall that we stretched. So I'll hit cut, and there we go. So we got our new wall in. To remedy the, yeah, you could just go to West Elm or whatever your favorite source is for this. Let's see, what am I going to do here? I'm just going to take this area of the window. I'm going to select it, and then I'm going to go in with my soft brush again. I'm going to sample that white. I'm going to zap out. I'm going to just draw right over that blind. And then while I've got that selected, I think I'll go in and get a nice light blue, a little California blue sky. I'll stay in the soft brush, and I'll just throw in a little bit of the haze you'd see at the top of the sky. Okay? And if I wanted to now, I could come in, and if you'll just humor me, I'll take a nice shade color, and I'll go with the technical pen, and I will turn on drawing assist, and I'll share this all with you after this. And this is going to be my layer for this new what do you call that? The blinds, the nice expensive wood blinds. Okay, and I went too far. I'll probably go a little closer. I'll heat that up for you a little bit. But this is a good example of how you can fake things real fast. And so after I do that, I'll just quickly I'll pick I've got the eraser and the flat brush eraser picked, and I'll just come down and make it look like it's a blind. Okay, so that's part 2 we address. I'll go back to our punch list of things, and let's fix the chair next. So Yeah, if it's a fast presentation, I'll do as much as I can right on the original. I mean, normally what I should have done is I should have copied that and then just turn that original off, and then let me go. You're seeing me think this out in real time. Let me go to the freehand selection tool, and I'm going to follow this because it's really like the perfect shape for the back of a chair. And I'll just bring that down, and yeah, let's see, it would actually go up here, I think. And then I'll come back over here and go back up. And then I'll sample that color. And I think now I got to go back to the soft brush, which is the ultimate photo retouch tool. And now I'll just throw this in. Okay. And I think I'll do a little white highlight while I'm in that tool. This is always so much fun to do. I'm going to do a little white highlight at the top and the side. And then I'll do slightly, you remember this trick where we went in, we go into saturation brightness, and I pick the pencil, which gives me a lot more control. And then I'm going to go, I'm sorry, I'm going to go here to the flat brush, and I'm going to tell it down here, I'm going to say make this darker. Whatever I do, make darker. And it should, oh, I see. Your chair, is your chair on its own? Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, this isn't going to work perfectly um, because I was thinking the chair was on its own layer, um, but it's not. So I'll just keep going in regular paintbrush mode, and I'll sample this darker color here. I've got the flat brush picked, and all I'm trying to do is show the part of this chair that goes under the desk here now. And then I'll give it, maybe I'll, by hand, I'll just throw in a little bit of extra darkness just to model the chair a little bit more. I don't know if that's coming across for you, but you see that? Okay, cool. So I got that, and I'll go back to the punch list, and and it's really like a video game or something, Nick. It's just so the stuff is so fun to do. So let's go and fix this guy next. So I'm going to go into freehand select. I'll come across here, and I want this, I want that line to be parallel to these lines, so it's going to cut across parallel, but then it's going to come down and converging to the same angle that the wall's already converging, and then it's going to go up here, and now I'm still in the soft brush. I think I'm soft brush. I'll sample that color, and I'll just fill that in, and I do like to give things a little bit of a gradient as I'm going to give them a little more life, And we don't, you could have sometimes you can make a palette ahead of time to save time, but I'll just kind of pick a lighter color and this is a good trick, by the way, right at about eye level, I'll just put a little bit of glare on the cabinet itself. And usually the reason I put that at eye level is because um, when you're standing at eye level, things in the distance that are sources of light, like patio doors, are also at your eye level. So that's why eye level is usually where the brightest things in a room will be, if that makes sense. Okay, and then you see how it's like the shoe box that the rendering's in. It seems a little bit shallow. At least, I'm going to make the case that it is. So I'm going to also extend out your room a little bit, and I'll show you a trick for that. I'm gonna go back up to where I think this perspective point is, this back of this wall, and I'm going to come right down, and just for now I'll take it all the way out. And all I'm doing is I'm eyeballing this, but I want to make sure that dotted line lines up with that corner. So I like to do this a lot. You can just keep tapping until you get it right. And then I'll bring it over here, and then I'll go all the way up to this corner, and then I'll just make sure I catch. What I'm going to do is extend this nice color all the way. What am I going to do? Oh, I know what it is. I should not have started up there. So I'll match this dot, but the selection just went literally along the hair's width of that line. So I've got the selection shape I wanted. I'll go back into my soft brush, and I'll pick up this color, and I'll just extend your floor. Now, I always have the option of putting a border around these things later. But I do like to make my drawings bigger than necessarily where I might trim them later, because it gives you more options. And since we're here, let's just go ahead and do the same thing to the ceiling. So it's really all about depth, right? We're trying to create depth, because depth is the thing that will fool your clients into thinking they're in the room, or being able to understand the room more. Okay. All right, so there's my ceiling. And then I'll do the last thing, I'll do it with this wall too. Come out here, come down here, over to here, up and here. And I like the fact that you can do these crazy shapes, because it really doesn't matter. It's all going to look like it's always been there. And now that I see that, I might this cabinet still seems a little akimbo to me or something. So I'll just go in and quickly clean that. I'll just change the perspective of that, make it look a little deeper than it actually is, and see what that does for me. I'm just going to eyeball this. And how are we doing so far? Am I losing you, or? Okay, excellent. All right, so, and if it's a walnut cabinet or a darker walnut, I'll make it a little darker at the top and bottom. And then, so that's good. And I'll just show you really quickly. Okay, this is interesting. So even now I can see that wall's not coming out enough. And so I'll extend that wall just to give me the maximum options later. And this gets a little trickier because you've got some nice modulation going on in there already. So initially I'll pick up this, I like this lighter blue color down here. What did I do wrong? Oh yeah, that original. Okay, I see what I need to do. I actually need to be doing this up here on that layer that we got rid of, or that we extended. And then I'll switch up here to the other color and start to blend them like that, and with any luck. And then I'll switch to whatever color you had up here, and hopefully by the time you do it, it's close enough. Let's say I can always go back in and smudge, and just to blend this a little bit. We haven't talked about the smudge tool much, but it's fantastic. So now I'm blending, right? Oops, I went too far. I got into your painting, but that's not bad, right? For 5 minutes time. Okay, so now I'm starting to see the room a little better. And the last thing I'll do along these lines is I'll go back to the original photo. And I like this carpet. I think it's really interesting. So I'll pick that guy up, and we'll save the dog for later. Now I know I'm going over your chair legs, but that's okay. And I'll show you a trick for that in a second. So this time I'm going to do a copy and paste because I actually want to lift that rug out completely so I can, like I'm sure it is in the layer in your drawing. And so I've got that now. And oh yeah, I know what I messed up because I'll put that down under here. We're going to get to that in a second. No, that's not going to work. I'm running up against some of the issues that you had. Um, Issues just because I don't have your original, but that's fine. So uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And for just for kicks right now, what I'll do is I'll take this and we'll just repeat it. Oops, I'll stay in uniform and we'll just say, oh, that was never there. That was always there. Don't worry about it. So we'll do our best version of a fake one. And then I was going to show you this thing. I'm not good at this, but yeah, no, too much information. I'll just do some quick. I want to make sure I'm still on that carpet layer, and I'll just do some quick fakery. Maybe take the flat brush and sample this rose color here, and just put in some. Pretend I know what that would look like if it repeated, and I'll work over this chair just to get rid of that. But you won't have to do any of that. But I'm being enough of a completionist that it'd be fun to do this for me now. Okay, and then put a little white back in. Okay, just to give the effect. So I think the real thing that's going to potentially, oh, I know what I did say that we would move that um, computer to, and we'll do a copy and paste, and we'll move it over here, give it a little breathing room, and I'll go back down to the original, and I'll just quickly sample the wall color and get rid of the part that's behind the move we made. Sample the desk color. Okay, so there's that. And then, so I told you, I was telling you that very often I'll frame the renderings after I've done them because I don't want to be thinking about how far to go out at first. So at the very top, I'm going to add a layer, and I'm going to go to rectangular selection, and I'll just come down somewhere around here, and we'll reframe this. I may end up coming in, maybe coming in a little more over here, because it'll suddenly get very, oh, I didn't want to do that. It'll suddenly get very evident. Um, okay, never mind. It'll suddenly get very evident where that the things are have a third vanishing point, you know, which is okay. Because when you do put a straight frame around things, it makes that the fact that there is a third vanishing point going down more evident. But that's not bad, I don't think. And then I guess I was going to say what um, this wall, because there's daylight, this white wall behind the computer, I'm going to I'm going to merge down the television on top of this layer. But this white wall behind the computer I might select because it's going to help me to be able to adjust that later. So I'm going to go into automatic and I am going to tap it and grab as much as I can of that wall before I also grab the desk. I don't want the desk. I just want that nice off-white in the distance. And now I can trim it up a little. And I'm just tapping now. So I'll do a cut and paste so I can totally isolate that wall and manipulate it on its own. And my goal there is to, even though I know it's white, I want to darken it a little bit so I feel, just so I can play with it once the lighting starts, because I may want the outside to be the brightest thing, you know. And then the last thing I'm going to do, which I think you can do with all your clients, is I'm just going to do the cheap trick of the lighting, you know, the artificial light. So I'll throw this into multiply, and just for starters, I'll pick one of these gray violets, um, which I usually end up turning it down because I don't want everything to be violet. But so I'll pull that across, and I will tone that down a little bit, and then just in a very short amount of time, I'll go in here to the freehand selection, and I'll make the window completely white. So I'll do just a cut operation there. And then I'll make her, and then I'll just, and this is fun for me, I'll just take the big soft brush and I'll just play with it. And that same rule applies to, you know, the eye level part of the room being the brightest. So I'll just very softly start to lighten up the middle of the room. And I'll lighten up where the daylight would come in and hit the floor. I'll lighten up where the desk is, because what I'm trying to do is make it so that she sees that window as providing the most pleasant light in here. And then I'll lighten this up again. And let's see, what was the last thing I was going to do? Is what I was going to do was imagine or pretend you had a table lamp over here or something. Let's see where we are. We're still in that layer. I think anything, you know, anything that gave it some intimacy, right? So she could really imagine herself working there late at night. That will certainly help you win your clients over, I think, if they can imagine the things that they have to do. I'll just quickly invent a light there, just to make the point. And maybe I'll give that a little bit of a tone. So let's see, what else? So I do think I made that a little too dark in places, but I really, the trick is you have to create enough contrast where you want the lights, and then you can take care of the rest. Where it gets too dark, you can take care of later just with your brush, you know. But of course, you know, that window would kick up some light on the thing, and then people aren't, you know, sometimes people take dark corners very literally, so you don't want to do that. And then what's the last thing we said we would do was maybe, oh, I know, let's do the drop shadow under the chair and maybe the dog. So I'll go way back down because I want to be just above the floor layer. And I don't even know what that is. So that looks better. It looks better the way you had it first. Remember I made that a little darker, but I'll just turn that off and that looks a little more lively. And then above this floor selection, I'll do one of those drop shadow things where you go with multiply. I'll go back to the gray violet, maybe a slightly darker one this time. And if I'm on a roll, I'll activate the color fill thing. So I got color fill, I got freehand going. I'll start with a little shadow behind the doggy. Is that her actual dog, by the way? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I love that. Yeah. All right. And then I'll also add a little bit of a, well, this will look a little odd, but um, yeah, that's all right. So there's the beginning of a shadow. It's a little too purple. I can come in here and I can tone it down because it really wants to be more dark like the floor itself. But, suddenly that's adding some fun. And then I guess the last thing is I'll stay under this twilight layer. I'll add a layer above the lamp. And then I'm going to guess at the color of these frames. I'll make a like a middle gray just so it shows up. And I'll pick the flat brush and make it very thin. And I'll just add some depth to these with like a single stroke. And imagine she's got her diploma wall is all the same, framed with the same kind of frame. And so I think I've actually gotten too light here with this, but I'll see it through to its logical conclusion. Yep. Yeah, let's put in a thick one like that. That'd be cool. And that, and that. A lot of these details people won't necessarily notice, so you just have to be aware of the fact that if you're a completionist like me, then you're just doing unnecessary things. But here's another good example of like here's this layer, all it has on it is these ridiculous little sides of this thing, right? But they're obviously they're not showing up. They're having some problems. So this is a perfect candidate for that pencil mode of the brightness and contrast. So I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with it, but first I'll start darker and I'll go to the soft brush and watch this here. So I'll do this and suddenly there'll be contrast here, but then I'll let it go back to the white here and then I'll add contrast here. So it's just a way of giving a little life to these things. And there's no science for it. It's just pure, playing around, I guess. Um, I add it where I think it needs it. And that may be enough. And then, if let's say that you wanted at the very end, you wanted to add some sparkle, some lights, then I would go to the light. I love this one. I'd go to this flare brush. And you saw when we did this before, let's say we add a little flare spotlight for her diploma wall. And then maybe the room itself, where you come in, or maybe there's more of those over here that give the bookshelf an accent or something. And a lot of times that's just BS. The client doesn't ask you for that, but it just kind of looks cool. So what's left? I mean, I guess we could do the same thing if we go back to this layer and just pick a gray, and I'll pick the script brush, and I'll just add a little bit of that accent, like you were talking about, uh, where this rug might cast just a tiny bit of a drop shadow. A little bit here. But these are all details. And then you can always go back in and, sometimes you'll want to go back in and just dress up your pencil drawing a little bit. And you can quickly add some more lines, like where some of the lines have dropped off. It might be good to make them a little zippier. And let's add one here. And you'll notice, oh, here's a good place. I could actually put a shadow behind this thing. Well, that didn't work out so good. But you know, if you really wanted to get obsessive, you could add a few things like go with a soft brush, say, and just make it look like there's a little bit of a shadow where this hutch or whatever it is picking up the light from that thing.
Well, that's it. That's the before and after with Nick and one of my best students at UCLA. And if you're interested in this kind of lesson or learning more about rendering or learning more about all the things that Procreate can do for you, from freehand sketching to drafting to rendering, the three main tasks of any architect or designer, then I'm going to put the link in the description below to my website. And please come and sign up for more information about my coming online course. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.